dark, cloudy morning, June 1st. No rain yet, but any time now, I think. The forecast says rain and thunder showers for today. This is a bit of a closer look at the red flowering horse chestnut tree. In full bloom now, lots of blossoms. Remains to be seen if I'll get any chestnuts though. This happens frequently and I don't get hardly any chestnuts off the thing. Now that the garden is fully planted, I'm going to try to do one update a week. Anybody that's watching these videos gives you an idea of the progress the garden is making, but also it'll serve as a video record for me in the future, so I can refer back to it next year or whatever. This is the bed of brassicas, which are doing much better now, and whatever it is that was eating them has gone away. I inquired at the garden center in St. Stephen, one that I call the world's most expensive garden center, and a lady there told me that several people up there had had the same problem, and they were blaming it on field mice, which I think sort of makes sense here. I never found anything like slugs or anything. I put down slug bait and it stopped, but I've never seen anything like that on the plants at all. This is the bed with lettuce and beets, a little bit of Swiss chard, and the row of carrots that are there, but they're just not doing anything. Tiny little seedlings that don't seem to be developing very well. Yesterday I went around all of the transplanted plants, loosened up the soil, and added a little of the Miracle-Gro organic fertilizer, and then watered it in. Hopefully give things a little bit of a start. That's the flat-leafed Italian parsley. Transplanted well, and it's got some additional leaves now, and more beets, and the black-seeded Simpson lettuce. And then there's a row here of bush beans, which are coming up quite nicely. These are the Haricot Vert, the French bush beans. A few that haven't come up yet, but I've got lots that I can replace them with if they don't come, I guess. And this back row is the second row of peas that I planted, and they're off to a pretty good start. They've been up for about a week now. Some of the peas seeds didn't germinate, and a week or so ago I planted some of the blue potted peas to replace them, and I can see where they're starting to come through the surface now. And this bed has the garlic, which is still doing very well, some fennel, one brassica, more of the Swiss chard, and a row of beans. The first two squares are a heritage bean called Royal Burgundy, and as you can see, some of them are up. There are others that I can see that aren't showing up on the video, I'm sure, that are just coming through the surface, but any of those that don't make it, I'll have to replace them with the Haricot Vert because I planted all the seed that I had there. And the back row is the peas that been in the ground, I guess maybe 3 weeks more now, 4 weeks probably, and they're coming along quite nicely. One or two have actually reached out with their little attachment things, whatever you call them, tendrils, and have attached to the poultry netting. So by next week, when I do next week's video, I expect to see some of them climbing. Just a little shot of the Gibraltar azalea. It's in complete bloom now. In the background is a sea buckthorn bush, which I think the color makes a nice contrast behind it, sort of that olive green foliage. This is the raised bed with my tomato plants, all of which have grown quite a little bit. They got a little boost of fertilizer yesterday too. And then in front of the tomato plants are some of the ground cherries and the cayenne chili peppers. And so far all of them have survived as well. I've had a bit of a problem over here in this bed with the cucumbers. No slugs or anything like that. 2 or 3 times in a row I came out here and there were 4 or 5 crows in this area. And they hadn't done anything. I just sort of left them alone. And then I went away one afternoon and come back, and several of the yellow wooden markers with the plant names on have been pulled out of the ground, and a couple of the cucumbers have been pulled up. And I blame this on the crows. Just behind this bed is a compost pile of compost that's waiting to go into the composter as soon as I get it completely emptied, which is just about any minute now, I guess. Anyway, I think the crows have been attracted by the compost pile, feeding on fresh things from the kitchen, and they decided to come around and have a look at this, and I think they sort of looked at it as a game, I guess. Anyway, the other things in the bed, there's these 5 cells of rutabagas, and they've been in close to a week, and I don't see any germination yet. And then there are 5 brassicas, which I'm really not sure what they are. They're whatever I had left over. All 5 of those are looking good. And there's a couple of the red China eggplant, one that's looking good and one that the crows attacked. And this is the large bed, 7 by 13 feet, which I filled full of squash, heritage varieties of squash, just from the seed packet that was called Fun with Winter Squash. So I really don't know what the varieties are. Haven't lost a single plant, and there hasn't been any damage of any kind that I can see. No slugs or anything has attacked them. I have noticed a couple of places in the soil where some of the neighborhood cats think that this is a very large litter box, I guess, but they haven't damaged the plants in any way. I filled several of these large pots that I had full of compost out of my own compost pile and planted leftover tomatoes, and I guess this one has got a chili pepper and a parsley plant in, just because I couldn't stand to throw away the leftover plants. This one, I guess, has a tomato and a ground cherry in it. And it's next to my potatoes. I'm amazed. These things were planted maybe 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. And they were these sickly-looking, long, white sprouts on potatoes that have been in the basement all winter. They've turned into beautiful plants and done it very quickly. They were planted in pure compost again out of my compost pile. And yesterday I did add some of the organic fertilizer to the top and scratch it in just in case there's something missing in the compost that they need. But 2 of them have grown up enough that I could fill the containers full of compost. The 3rd one, I'm just waiting for the foliage to get up above the surface before I continue filling it up. Quick little tour of the greenhouse. The tomato plants are growing nicely. I'm soon going to have to put in a support system for them, I guess, or they're going to be falling over. And over here I have the greenhouse cucumbers, which, as you can see, are starting to grow their first true leaf in the center there. Be very careful not even touch these. They're very susceptible to any kind of a virus. Last year I had good luck, but for several years previous I'd lost them. All of a sudden they willed. Here's the red China eggplants. They're moving right along. And the ground cherries have really grown. One of my earlier videos I mentioned that I had finally been successful in getting milkweed to germinate. Well, I transplanted the little seedlings. I have 19 of them growing in 4-inch pots. I'll grow them on probably until at least the middle of July or later, and then I'll transplant them where I'd like to have them in the garden. To close this video off, another look at some azaleas. These ones are up by the roadside garden. See a little bit of orange down in there. That's another of the Gibraltars, like in the hidden garden out back.